Chiefs have signed John Ross to a future reserve deal.
This is a guy who really, look, he's going to add a bunch of speed, a bunch of dynamic playmaking ability to an offense.
Now I know what you might be thinking. Mike, you've made this video multiple times over the past year. And no, I'm not denying it. I have made this video multiple times over the past year. And sometimes we hit on our take, like in the case of Kadarius Toney, and sometimes we completely miss, like in the case of Justin Ross, which don't worry, he still has time to prove us wrong. And in this case, it seems like the Kansas City Chiefs once again stole a brand new weapon for Patrick Mahomes right in time for the NFL playoffs. So before we get to the content, a lot of you guys have been asking me where I post my prize pick predictions, and I make predictions and post them onto my Instagram story more or less on each and every night. All you have to do to access them is just follow me on Instagram. It's available to all you guys for free. And on top of that, if you guys are looking for my more edgier documentary content like the biggest tragedy in NFL history or CTE caused his death, a Junior Seau story, I have to move those documentaries from YouTube onto Patreon because YouTube has been age restricting my content. Now that we got all of that out of the way, work! A lot of you guys have been hitting me up in the DMs telling me how much money you've been making on Prize Picks. A huge shout out to my subscriber Spencer Sims, who's made $7,000 off of his picks over the past 2 weeks. If you follow me on Instagram, you know I play Prize Picks religiously and I post my picks to my story each and every day. If you want to try out Prize Picks right now, when you use my promo code Mikerophone, you'll get up to a $100 deposit match on your first deposit. And if you get any big hits on Prize Picks, make sure you DM them to me on Instagram so I could feature you in future promos. And thank you, Prize Picks, for the sponsor. Mike Chuck 1212. What's going on, everybody? The Kansas City Chiefs have a history of taking chances on fairly risky yet high potential prospects, especially players that were at one point or another former first round picks. The earliest example I could think of this is when they decided to sign Kelvin Benjamin for the 2018 NFL season, right in time for a hopeful playoff push. This was after Kelvin Benjamin was traded from the Carolina Panthers to the Buffalo Bills. He didn't really look like the player that he once was in Carolina and Buffalo, and when a former first round pick ends up hitting free agency when he's still in the later part of his 20s, which is when he's supposed to be hitting his prime, then obviously you should do your diligence on it. Look no further than last year for your next example, when the Kansas City Chiefs decided to sign Damon Arnett to a futures contract after the Las Vegas Raiders decided to release him because he decided to post a video of himself threatening another human with a weapon onto his Instagram story. That one in particular is very near and dear to my heart. That's actually the first video I think I recorded in this new studio, which, oh my god, it's been a year since we moved here. That's kind of crazy. Now, as a result of the Kansas City Chiefs recently trading their top wide receiver Tyreek Hill to the Miami Dolphins for a first round pick, a second round pick, 2 fourth round picks, and a 6th round pick, the Chiefs have been in an arms race to try to fill the void that Tyreek Hill left behind. And to their credit, they've done a significantly better job than a team like the Green Bay Packers. It took them some time to finally fill the void that Devontae Adams left behind, and by the time they were able to fill that void, they weren't good enough to make the playoffs. Now, next year for the Packers might be a different story, but for the Kansas City Chiefs, they decided to bring in Juju Smith-Schuster, who was at one point a very reputable wide receiver with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and in addition to that, they decided to surround Patrick Mahomes with a bunch of speed demons. I mean, Marquez Valdez-Scantling was another player they decided to sign. They decided to draft Sky Moore with one of their second round picks this past year. They signed Justin Ross, who would have been a first round pick if it wasn't for his injury concerns, but unfortunately for Justin Ross, after making a phenomenal catch in training camp, for the most part you didn't see him play this year because he once again sustained an injury. And while the Chiefs got off to a good start despite all the new weapons they went into this season with, they also decided to try to add a wide receiver in the middle of the season. In the very beginning, Travis Kelce flirted with the possibility of the Chiefs adding Odell Beckham Jr.
So you cannot verify or debunk the rumors out there surrounding OBJ?
Odell Beckham Jr.?
That's the OBJ I'm referring to.
Want them to come true. I have not heard anything in the locker room or anything around the facility.
All right, playing a little coy with it. I get it.
Something's in the air for sure. And if it means OBJ...
We can neither confirm nor deny, but we will speculate and look forward to seeing OBJ in a Chiefs uniform.
And once they decided not to trade for Odell Beckham Jr., they decided to trade a third-round compensatory pick and a 2023 sixth-round pick for a former first-round pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, Kadarius Toney. And so far, the Kadarius Toney trade seems to have worked out wonderfully for them. Since becoming a Kansas City Chiefs, Kadarius Toney already has 171 receiving yards off of 14 receptions this season, and I can only imagine once he finally has a full offseason with the Kansas City Chiefs, how good he could potentially be. But just because the Chiefs are the first seed and already have a first-round bye for the AFC playoffs doesn't mean that they're no longer looking for wide receiver talent, because it seems like once again the Kansas City Chiefs are going to attempt to work out another first-round pick that is quote-unquote deemed as a bust that has a tremendous amount of potential. So yesterday we got news that the Kansas City Chiefs were working out quarterback Nathan Rourke, wide receiver Slade Bolden, wide receiver John Ross, and wide receiver Ty Freifogel. That is the most bad last name of all time. I hope Freifogel makes it because that jersey will sell. For tryouts today, per the NFL's personnel notice, Ross and Freifogel reported to have signed reserve/future deals. The fact that John Ross was signed on to the Kansas City Chiefs on a future deal is fairly significant. One, the fact that John Ross was selected one pick before Patrick Mahomes is pretty funny. But two, this is a fantastic guy to have on your team with a future deal. I mean, he is the definition of the type of wide receiver the Kansas City Chiefs typically go for. To give you an idea of the type of player he is, John Ross bursted onto the scene during the 2017 NFL pre-draft process when he shattered Chris Johnson's 40-yard dash record of 4.24 with a 4.22 second 40-yard dash time. This was enough to boost his draft stock all the way into the top 10. I mean, you guys know that there's some NFL teams that are absolute suckers for this type of stuff. If you're running this type of 40-yard dash, some team at the very minimum will convince themselves that you have the potential to become the next coming of Tyreek Hill. And in the case of John Ross, that's how the Cincinnati Bengals felt about him. Ross was selected with the 9th overall pick of the 2017 NFL Draft, right after Corey Davis and Mike Williams. The goal being that John Ross would be the wide receiver 2 to complement AJ Green. But unfortunately for John Ross, anytime he needed to perform and anytime his number was called, he just had really bad luck. The times where he needed to show up would be disastrous for him. To give you an idea, he made his regular season debut on Thursday Night Football against the Houston Texans, and he fumbled his first and only carry of the game and was then benched after only gaining 12 rushing yards, and this would be the only touch of his rookie season. He'd be active for 2 out of his next 10 games, he wouldn't record any statistics at all, and he would get injured from weeks 3 and 5 of his regular season because of a knee injury. And for the rest of the season, he was a healthy scratch. He was placed on injured reserve on December 4th, 2017 with a shoulder injury, and that would end his rookie season. Now, a lot of this could be blamed on his head coach at the time, Marvin Lewis, for mismanaging him. I mean, if you're a rookie and you immediately fumble and then you get benched for the rest of the game, that'll definitely psych you out a little bit. Ross would have some more success in his sophomore season with 21 receptions for 210 receiving yards and 7 touchdowns. And then in 2019, he'd have his best season to date. He'd only play in 8 games, but he would record 506 receiving yards and 28 receptions. Unfortunately, this wasn't enough for the Cincinnati Bengals to keep him. They would decline his 5th-year option, making him a free agent in 2021. He would test positive for COVID during training camp, and then on October of 2020, he would request a trade. He'd even tweet out that he requested a trade. He wouldn't play very much in 2020, and in 2021, he would sign a 1-year contract with the New York Giants, but unfortunately for him, the New York Giants were an absolute shit over franchise in 2021. He would get playing time because Sterling Shepard and Darius Slayton would get injured, and in 10 games he would be able to come down with 11 receptions for 224 receiving yards and a touchdown. But he would go unsigned in 2022 free agency up until yesterday, where he would sign a contract with the Chiefs. This is a low risk, high reward signing for the Chiefs. I mean, for all you know, John Ross could once again find himself out of the NFL if this doesn't work out. But if there's a team that could bring out the best in a player that ran a speedy 40-yard dash that was mismanaged by two franchises that has shown potential, by the way. He's currently 27 years old, and I actually think this is the best case scenario for him. The very best, the Kansas City Chiefs got themselves the pick before Patrick Mahomes essentially for free. At the very worst, you cut him and cut your losses and you just move on. Let me know what you guys think about this decision. Do you think this is going to make much of an impact for the Kansas City Chiefs, or is this a gigantic nothing burger and we're not going to hear much from John Ross in the coming days? I'd like to hear what you have to say. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike. I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.